and welcome back to Bookish Theories. Today we take a look at ENHYPEN Bad Desire With or Without You, breaking down the concept and story portrayed in this comeback. While it's not directly connected to the title track, the main themes of the album were already introduced back in the Desire concept cinema, so if you want to know more about that breakdown is linked up in the corner, down in the description below, and in the ENHYPEN special playlist. At the time I'm recording this, the album has been out for a bit, and I'm already seeing accusations of Satanism floating on my timeline, so you just know that this comeback will be successful. Truth be told though, this time around we do have some interesting imagery to take a look at. The concept centers around desire and temptation, so all the symbolism revolving around angels and devils and heaven and hell is absolutely intentional. The key here is to understand what is the message they're trying to convey and what is the story they're trying to tell, so let's break it down because this time the video is quite abstract. So, Bad Desire. As the title implies, this time around the entire concept revolves around desire itself, the way it's difficult to resist it, and how dangerous it is to unleash it. As always, the concept was created with Dark Moon, so yet again ENHYPEN played the role of vampires who are tempted to turn a loved one into a vampire, but also try to fight the urge to bite them and give in to their desire. This is easier said than done though. In the English version, the subject of their affection is revealed to be an innocent girl with a heart so pure that they don't want to taint it with their desire, but this innocent girl has desires too. Am I right, Engine? I'm looking at you. The more they beg her to leave, the more she comes closer. The vampire wants to protect her, but she wants him to bite her, so it's all the more difficult to resist. The bad desire affects them both. We got a Twilight situation here. We have a human who longs for their vampire lover to turn her, and a vampire that desires to do the same, but also tries to stop himself because he understands the implications. As we know, these vampires are both blessed and cursed, right? They're blessed because they live forever and they're always young and beautiful, but they're also cursed because they cannot die and they have to deal with a desire for blood that never disappears. Even if he knows that she would be happy to accept this cursed existence, the vampire in love doesn't want this destiny to befall on his loved one, and yet he still yearns. He's still a vampire after all, so while he tells her not to touch him, he also seduces her as the crimson moon bathes their desire in red. This is because the vampires are fighting an inner battle with desire itself, which is a monster that takes over them and almost possesses them like a demon. This is an idea that was already introduced back in the concept cinema, where desire took on different forms. For the character played by Jake and Jay, for instance, desire was a monster that crept closer and closer until they could no longer control it. For Hisung's character, instead, the desire was represented by Nikki, who was his alter ego filled with hidden desire ready to come out. This time around, Nikki has a very similar role in the video because he's the narrator, but also one of the different representations of temptation. He's like the devil whispering in your ear, leading you towards desire, but also exposing the vampires as cursed entities that can never escape the darkness within. If we take a look at Dark Moon, I think it makes a lot of sense for Nikki to play this kind of roles. Him being desire, or the devil tempting you, the darkness creeping in. In the story, Noah is a shadow binder. His power is to control shadows, but there are also times in which the shadows take over him, which is also his biggest fear. This duality is also portrayed in the video, not just with Nikki, but also with the other members. Take this young one for instance. The vampire is constantly tempted by his dark side, trying to overpower him, and in the video this all stems from the temptation of the devil himself, which is the one facilitating their downfall. According to the press release, Bad Desire tells the story of some of the members falling into temptation as the devil sneaks out through a crack that connects hell and their fantasy of heaven. The paradise that is portrayed in the MV apparently is just an illusion, possibly because the vampires are cursed and cannot access the real one. And yet to them this heaven is just as blissful because it's a fantasy of love and light that comes from their innocent lover who is an angel in this world. We can tell that this is fiction because they portray Engine as innocent, but I've seen y'all's tweets, you don't fool me. If we take a look at the opening sequence, we see the boys experiencing their downfall, right? With 4 of them falling upwards to hell, while the other 3 falling downwards to reach heaven. Heaven and hell are inverted here, possibly referencing the lyrics. In the chorus, they say that a heaven without you feels like hell, but a hell when they embrace you is like heaven. No matter how much they try to resist, these vampires are ready to welcome damnation because of their bad desire, and in a sense this is exactly what happens. As we see at the beginning, not every member is immediately sent to hell. There's a scene where Jake is fighting Jay to protect him from the devil's temptation, but soon enough darkness begins to spread. Bear in mind, this is very much an inner battle between good and evil. It's a journey that takes place inside of them, like a dream or a fantasy, so you see multiple versions of them confronting each other. There are the angels, who represent the side of them that wants to resist temptation, but then you also have the demons, who symbolize the side siding with the devil and also trying to overcome the other. The demon side is the one that has the mark of the beast, cue satanic panic in the comments, and the more this side takes over, that is, the more the demons bite and whisper and tempt and torment, the more the monster grows and the landscape changes. Let's take the beast for instance, let's start with that. Initially the panther is only a painting in the background, it's something that lingers behind them, but when darkness spreads, the beast, which is that desire within, the demon, comes alive and attacks them. You see it with Jay for instance, who is attacked by the little drawings as he falls into hell, but also with Sono, who is surrounded by the monsters while he's still in the illusion of paradise and then gets transported out of it. Now, one thing that I noticed here is that when they fight temptation or fall for it, a lot of the members are associated to elements that recall their powers in Dark Moon. As I mentioned before, Nikki the Devil fits well with Noah being the Shadowbinder, but there's more. G for instance gets punched in the face by Desire, and Ian's superpower is strength. Jack has super speed, and we see Jiangwan running on walls while being chased by darkness. Jake falls for Desire surrounded by the beautiful fire, which connects to Gino being the pyromancer of the group, while Sono almost looks hypnotized by the devil. Like, it looks like he's being controlled by Desire, moved around like a doll, which heavily recalls Shion's power on mind control. With Songun and Hisung is a bit trickier to be honest, but we do see Hisung riding the monster at one point, which might suggest a telepathic connection. Thing is that later on we also see Jay being a demon rider, so I'm not sure it fits. As for Songun, we don't have a direct reference to him being a werewolf, but at the end, when the beast within goes up in flames, his mark disappears into his skin, almost as if he's repressing it or hiding the monster he is. This is also fitting with Solon, who even more than the others struggles with his monstrosity. While the others have to deal with their thirst, he has to deal with that and his animalistic wolf side coming out, so it's even harder. Either way they're going through it, right? And the way this desire is portrayed also references some of their previous songs. The beautiful fire and the black smoke, for instance, are straight out of Fever. Back then Desire was like a fever burning them up, a fire that was burning them from the inside out as they were longing to embrace their lover, and now it's exactly the same. 5 years down the line they still want that embrace, and they still welcome those flames because the beautiful fire is the price that they're willing to pay to be with you. The black smoke is also a very cool reference here. Back in Fever they portrayed the era when they turned into vampires, so the black smoke was still chasing them. At the time they were still human, so the darkness wasn't inside of them yet, but in the intro the smoke eventually got them, which is why they got the fever. Now instead the black smoke is coming out of them. In fact, they are the black smoke. It's a part of them, which really goes to show that after they became vampires, that darkness never left them. It's like Nikki says in the intro, his heart will always be toward the darkness, because darkness took them, and in darkness they exist. The beast's change in size also reminded me of the Black Cat from Brought the Heat Back, where they also burn up, but this time out of jealousy. I wanted to mention this because both videos were directed by the same person. Because of that the visual direction is similar, but I also think that the design of the demon was inspired by Dante's Divine Comedy, which I'll circle back to in a second. The last reference I want to mention in fact is also a video inspired by that, which is Sacrifice. Now Sacrifice is an interesting one because I can definitely see some visual callbacks here and there. The difference is that there is an inversion of roles about who sacrifices who. Back then the vampire was the willing sacrifice of somebody whose love was supposed to save them, but now the lover is the sacrifice. The lover is an angel in the world, but they're sacrificed in the dark, even though she seems just as willing to be honest, so there's that. A key point in common though is the setting, both of which are at least in part inspired by Dante's Divine Comedy. Now if you watch my videos before, then you know that I'm pushing this Divine Comedy propaganda ever since pre-debut, so after years I'm finally getting vindicated here. Sacrifice was a big one because in the video their journey to salvation followed a very similar structure to Dante's journey through hell, purgatory and paradise. In the song they even mention the river Lete, which is the river of forgetfulness from Greek mythology that Dante puts in purgatory, so you know the callbacks were all there. Now in Desire Unleashed we don't have references that are as direct, but the main version of the album definitely has some parallels. In the pictures the red lighting makes it look like they are in a river of blood, and in the seventh circle of hell there is a river of blood where the souls facing damnation get boiled as a form of punishment. This river is the Phlegethon, the flaming one, which also fits with them being set ablaze by the beautiful fire they mention in the lyrics. In the video I think that the designs of hell and the illusion of paradise borrow a lot from the Divine Comedy, but I'll tell you one more, I think that the inspiration specifically comes from the illustrations of Gustave Doré, which is a French painter from the 1800s. Heaven, for instance, looks very similar to his depictions of paradise. The burning landscape of hell instead once again recalls the seventh circle, which is the circle of the violent against the self, others and God. I personally think that they reference this circle more for the visuals rather than anything else. Like, it's the seventh circle, which is a cool nod to being 7 members, but it also has boiling blood, rain of fire, and a living forest made of thorns and lost souls. It doesn't get more more hellish than that, you know what I mean? But the violence of the seventh circle can also translate into how violent is the bad desire that is taking them over. Like, all jokes aside, the story that they're telling here is not a love story, it's a tragedy. The vampire is a creature that is cursed to destroy everything he loves, because his desire cannot be separated from his thirst, so there's no way this ends well. They are also ready to burn for their love, so again, violence against others, but also against the self, not to mention violence against God, because in the photo book, the story portrays the vampire ready to define divine will in order to unite his world with his lovers. Thinking about it, maybe the seventh circle was chosen precisely because of how violent and unforgiving desire is when you unleash it. And speaking of the seventh circle, I think that the beast might belong there as well. Now, when it comes to the design of the demon, I think that the artist took inspiration from different images here. On the one hand, I think that the monster recalls this image of Lucifer, which really fits with the idea of the devil escaping through the cracks in order to tempt them. Between the seventh and the eighth circle, though, there is also this big boy called Geryon, the monster of deceit, which is a creature that flies around like the panther in the video. Could be one, could be the other, maybe even a mix of both, but since the design on Nikki and Sangun is a bit different, I'll also give you another one, which is this panther right here. So basically at the beginning of the story, Dante ends up in hell after getting lost in a dark forest. In these woods he meets three creatures. One is a lion symbolizing pride, another is a she-wolf representing greed, but the very first one is a panther, which represents lust and uncontrollable desire. Sounds familiar? Exactly. This panther doesn't allow him to pass. It stops him in his tracks because it's meant to represent the way lust gets in the way of salvation. In our story, the vampires most definitely stray away from their fantasy of heaven because of their desire, so all in all I think it fits. Still, by the end we see the demon going up in flames. Sangun is the one left standing as the mark on his neck slowly disappears, but does this mean that he defeated the devil? Is his desire now gone? Well, personally I think that if anything he only managed to repress it, because keep in mind that in this story desire is the only thing that never dies. At best it stays hidden, dormant right under the surface, but desire is a part of their curse, and since their curse makes them live forever, desire lives forever within them. Still, to know how the story will continue, for now we'll have to wait and see, but in the meantime let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please think about liking and subscribing, and if you want to support me, I have a new channel for you to check out and merch linked in the description down below. As always, thank you so much for watching guys, I'll see you next time, bye bye!